Hey guys, this is the Scholar General Mo Bing. So I recently made a review of the LK Chen Song Han Dao or Shou Dao. This blade is very unique and looks unlike most any blade that is used in lots of modern Chinese martial arts styles. I wanted to talk today about, why don't we see this design still being used later on during the Ming and Qing dynasties? What was it that made it fade away from use in the Song dynasty, and did it really fade away? In the Song dynasty, which is like the 11th and 12th centuries AD, we have, particularly towards the end of that dynasty, we start to see the use of these heavy choppers that don't have a point. But later on, we start to see like these more curved blades particularly, and sometimes during the Yuan and Ming, we have some extremely curved swords in China. And I talked about this in a different video, but basically for single-handed use on horseback, a curved sword is advantageous because it doesn't get stuck in your target as easily, and all these other reasons. It's just very good at cutting. Because of that, there's lots of cavalry at the time, particularly in the Yuan dynasty. So you have the Song dynasty, and it's conquered by the Mongols, and the Mongols established the Yuan. And whenever the Mongols come in, their army is not really the same as lots of other Chinese dynasties like the Song. So they really emphasize the use of these curved sabers like what I have here. And this design remained popular after the Mongol period into the Ming and Qing dynasties. What happened to this earlier blade type that's just heavy cutter? It did not actually go away. It still existed. What happened was it mostly became a two-handed use weapon. Now this one is actually a single-handed sword, right? But during the time of the Song dynasty, they also had two-handed versions, which are sometimes people refer to them as Jianma or horse chopping swords. That's a thing that we have in the texts, and we don't know exactly how they were meant to be deployed, and how you're supposed to attack the horse's information. There's ideas about that and debates. That's not what this video is about. The main thing is that they have Jianma Dao or horse cutting Dao, and they're these big two-handers. And on top of that, some of them also have these very long handles where it's no longer really a sword. It's more like a polearm or a nagamaki. And we see this term Changbing Dao or long-handled Dao being used to describe those weapons. This chopping blade profile drops out of single-handed use but remains in two-handed use. And it continues through all the dynasties like this. So the blade profile never actually goes away. It just becomes the things that we see on like glaives. Like later on in Chinese history, we have like these famous type of glaives, like the Guan Dao or the Dao of Guan Yu, the famous character from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and sometimes it's called like a Pu Dao or Po Dao. It's basically defined by this extremely wide cutting blade. And even after that, during the Republican era, so this is the 1930s, we have a Dao that's surprisingly similar to this one. It's called the Da Dao, or just the big Dao, and it was used by these troops in the 1930s against the Japanese in like World War II and stuff. And interestingly enough, that one even had a ring pommel. The main thing is this wide cutting blade profile fell out of single-handed use. They didn't use it on single-handed Dao anymore. They replaced it with the curved Dao. And why might that be? So there's a few potential, explanations. One of them, for battlefield use, and especially with polearms, you're hitting things really hard. You want a really robust blade that can take some damage. Now, I certainly think this blade is pretty robust, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's like, as robust as a mace or an axe or something like that. It's not quite the same thing. So I don't think robustness is the sole explanation for why we see this Dao design. Another one is that it's all about cutting ability, right? And it has this heavy blade presence. Like it's quite, even though this dao is shorter than the Scott Rodell cutting dao, like it's you can see it's a couple inches shorter there. But even though it's shorter, this one, the shorter one, is actually heavier, and that aids it in getting more power into the cut and putting more impact force into the strike. So and with a polearm, that can be very helpful, because polearms are already heavy weapons, and you can really do some damage on somebody if you hit them hard. I think that's partially the explanation, but another big reason that this type of blade profile fell out of single-handed dao use is because a longer handle simply makes the heavier weight easier to control. So yeah, I think they wanted things that could hit hard and cut heavy like this one, but the easiest and most logical, that's debatable, the easiest way to manage that weight, as is done on this one, is to just make the handle longer. But you don't have to stop here. You can just keep making it longer and longer and longer. And the longer the handle is, the more leverage you have over the weapon. Eventually you just get to glaives. And glaives are renowned for their, striking power and their cutting power. If we look at Chinese glaives in comparison to like the Japanese naginata, we can see this difference is very marked, like it's extremely obvious, because the naginata basically has like a katana mounted onto a pole, whereas a lot of Chinese glaives have a chopping, like a much thinner, broader profile, like this one. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I look forward to reading all of your guys' feedback, and stay sharp for next time.